Well, hello and welcome back to a very special edition of this week's question of the day. We're going to go right to the phone lines and talk about a topic that I think it's a good one. It's a good topic, honestly, but it is kind of a discussion that usually has very polarizing opinions. So polarizing opinion meaning like generally speaking, these games are not great. But in more recent years, games that are based on movies sometimes are really good, and some of these answers and some of these opinions of these callers that we're about to get, some of them are actually really really excellent games. So I'm actually really excited about this and about the question of the week. And this week's question is, what would you consider your favorite movie licensed video game? So I think we're going to hit right to the phone lines and we'll listen to some callers real quick, and let's hear what everyone has to say. So I hope you guys, and you guys, if you, also whoever's in the chat, if you're listening to this via the new podcast on Game Huggers on Podomatic, we used to have the Game Hump there as well. I'm posting these on there as well. This is the seventh question of the day, I believe. You can always pop in your comments there, or if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and comment on that as well, because that's always a lot of fun too to read those things later, and then we can kind of pick up the conversation that way as well. Also, if you want to tweet at me, you can always tweet with me some of your answers and things like that. You can find me at _Joshua Turbo. Don't forget the underscores is the most important underscore in all of the internet. All right, let's go to the first call.
Oh, this is a good question. I feel like the easy answer would be Aladdin or Lion King on the Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis, which I find that those games to be super fascinating and something that you could talk about for a while on their own. Just like the fact that they're different and how classic those games are, regardless. But for me, I think my answer for this one is Judge Dredd on the Super Nintendo.
Ooh.
That game was awesome when I was a kid. I haven't really gone back and played it, so maybe it hasn't held up as well as I think. But I really enjoyed that game. It was a ton of fun, and I feel like that era, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis era, had a lot of those kind of like licensed games that were actually like way better than anything you would get based on a show or a movie today.
True.
And I think maybe part of that has to do with them reusing all these engines and being able to quickly churn out new games with small teams, whereas game development costs and times are astronomical today. But yeah, Judge Dredd was a ton of fun on the Super Nintendo. That it kind of nailed the atmosphere of that movie, and it was a pretty decent like kind of shooter platformer. Really weird game, but I really liked it.
Awesome. Yeah, and I actually don't know if I have much experience at all with Judge Dredd on the Super Nintendo. That's freaking awesome that he mentions that though, because back in those times, Ocean, Acclaim, Core or Probe, was it Probe Games? They made games that were that Euro friendly side of games that came out on like the Amigas and the Commodores or the ZX Spectrums, that were really big in Europe. And when they did the transition to the US, it was like Super Nintendo and Genesis games. And sometimes they were really good and sometimes they were just average or whatever. But sometimes those games like Judge Dredd, Dracula on the Sega Genesis, some of these games have no business being as good as they were. And they're actually really fun games. So I actually don't know Judge Dredd on Super Nintendo. I want to try it now. I'm actually really excited about that. So let's go to Ring Fit Runner. Here he comes.
Beat up. Yeah, this is Ring Fit Runner. Back at it again. Oh, this week is fun. So the question I want to do my answer is a video game that's based on a movie franchise. I would love to say Saved by the Bell.
I don't think that was the Ring Fit Runner. Hold on, let me see if I can find the real. Hold on, there we go.
Hello, Ring Fit Runner here.
Oh,
My
this is-
answer for the weekly question of the day today is probably kind of a controversial one, because People probably think both are terrible, and that's fine. I'm a real big fan of Street Fighter the movie, the game,
Great game.
for the Sega Saturn. It's actually not a bad fighting game. The movie, objectively, terrible. But I love it too. That's right. I'm not ashamed. I'm proud of it. I like both the movie and the game. Street Fighter 2, the movie, the game. Weekly question answer of the day today. Thank you.
Today's this week's question of the day. No, we've been having a struggle a bit finding a name for this thing, but I like the weekly question of the day. I think that sounds funny. But yeah, Street Fighter the movie, the game, is really bizarre because the arcade game was initially developed by not Capcom, but it was like the weirdest cash grab idea ever because Capcom they were not completely unfamiliar with just cashing in on sequels, but this Street Fighter the movie, that was like the strangest one because it wasn't developed by Capcom, it wasn't developed by anybody at all, and when it came out in the arcade, most people were like, "That's freaking terrible." But when it was ported to the the Sega Saturn, and I think the PlayStation 2, they actually put a real development team, and they finished that game and released it on the consoles, and it was infinitely better than the arcade game. Like it played like a Street Fighter game. Street Fighter the movie in the arcades is incredibly different than Street Fighter the movie on consoles. It's stupid weird. I do not think the arcade game's any good, but the game, the movie, the game, it's a good Street Fighter game. It honestly is. It's the weirdest thing. All right, here we go.
Why you so fluffy, Mr. Chinchilla? Why you so fluffy, Mr. Chinchilla face?
All right, I have to, maybe I got to start reviewing these before I just. Let's get to the next caller. There's a lot of prank calls. Seems like this is happening more and more.
Okay, this question is for Joshua Jager, and the question is, what is your favorite movie-based video game? And the one that comes to mind, and this is a not-so-recent game, but was the first game based on a movie where I felt like it was a genuine AAA, console-worthy killer app experience, and that's the Genesis version of Aladdin. Genesis
game.
Aladdin is far better than the Super Nintendo game. It has great animation, very simple yet clean and well implemented mechanics. It looked wonderful, and quite frankly, is one of the best games for the Sega Genesis, and is still one of the best 2D platformers ever based on a franchise. So my final choice, Aladdin for Sega Genesis, is it's the first phenomenal movie licensed game I've ever played, but I do really like Friday the 13th for the NES.
Well, I actually think that. Ooh, thank you, Darkfather. I appreciate that. Sorry, I didn't realize there was so much activity going on. I think that Aladdin on the Genesis is truly the best game out of between the two Aladdin games, the one on Super Nintendo, one on Genesis. It is better, but people shouldn't sleep on Aladdin on Super Nintendo. It's actually a very fun game. It's pretty easy, but it's a good game. Like it's a very good game. I have a weird soft spot for like lots of games like that. Like Aladdin was brilliant. Lion King, very difficult, but a brilliant game once you can get farther into it. And one that I absolutely love that had no business even being decent at all is the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis / Sega CD version of Hook. Hook is awesome. I've been wanting to stream that one actually here at some point. I love Hook, and it's awesome. Sony ImageSoft made that for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis. This is a whole generation before the PlayStation ever came out, and Sony was making games. Actually, Sony was making games ever since like the original Nintendo as well. But yeah, I love Hook. It's a good game. There was actually a sequel. The company Hook was successful. The company Sony ImageSoft wound up making a sequel to it, but they couldn't get the rights to Hook, and they probably didn't even want the rights to it because they didn't want to be like limited to just making a Peter Pan game again. So they did a sequel called Sky Blazer that takes the game play from Hook and just turns it up to a whole nother level, and that's a really good game too. But yeah, Hook is one of my favorite movie licensed video games out there. And I loved Hook too, by the way, the movie. So, next caller.
Okay, kind of a cop-out two-part answer, but
Uh-oh.
are we talking about the Lego games? Can the Lego games count? Because they are
Why not?
adaptations of film stories in a lot of cases. So if the Lego games count, I mean, hell, take your pick. Probably, Star Wars, the Lego Star Wars games are incredible. The most recent Lego Star Wars game, the most comprehensive of all of them. So, yeah, we'll say that. The Lego games and Lego Star Wars potentially in particular.
I mean, I get that. I remember when Lego Star Wars first came out. I think that was on the PS2 GameCube era, Xbox probably too. It made me actually really like the prequels more. Hey, what's up, Morton? Yeah, we're talking movie licensed games tonight. So, yeah, muscles are out. The muscles are out, brother. But yeah, we're talking movie licensed games. What are some of your favorites? You can feel free to just chime in some of your favorites. But yeah, Zach had a good comment there with the Lego Star Wars games. That's a big one. Judge Dredd, Street Fighter the movie, the game. Wow, Butt's amazing. I'm so glad Buttspot's back. I'm glad there's Buttspot and AI Alicia and Morton's here. And well, if it ain't Buttspot, my arch nemesis, Buttspot. All right, so yeah, I think Legos, that makes sense, and that's fine. There are no wrong answers, right?
All right. A video game based on a movie or a movie-based video game. My favorite, most people would probably think it would be a Star Wars game or something around that effect, Star Trek. But mine is actually Friday the 13th from the Nintendo. Friday the 13th from the Nintendo. And the reason why was, one, it was a super hard game. I had never beat that game, even with the Game Genie. Never beat the game. But it was so much fun. There was tons of things to do. You never knew when Jason was going to show up. And I really do love what they did with the updated video game. We've had Joshua Turbo, myself, and Xavier Michaels, the superstar, have actually played that game quite a bit too. It gets a little laggy sometimes, and that causes issues. But the old Friday the 13th for the Nintendo, man, that was probably my favorite video game from a movie. So that's your answer. All right, thanks. Have a good day.
Well, thank you, Dorkfather. That was a good friend, Ryan Dorkfather. I actually really like that. The Friday the 13th on the NES is really hard. I remember that, and I loved that when you'd lose, it was like you and your friends are dead. Like that was just so cool. That I really do actually, and he'd mentioned this, the Friday the 13th game that came out on the PS4 or Xbox One or whatever. You can still play it on the PS5 too. That's a blast. It's such a good game. It's so freaking scary too, because you get enough of your friends. Speed run of Friday the 13th. Can you speed run Friday the 13th? I'm sure there are really good players out there. I am not one of them though, unfortunately. But like, the new one is such a blast. It's such a good game. It's such a simple concept too. It's like you play as the campers or you play as Jason, and that's it. And so you would do. Oh, you've seen a speed run? Oh, right on. Very cool. I bet it's a good speed run. I have to look that up. I've tried Friday the 13th fairly recently, like in the last couple of years, and just no good at it. Just no good. So, all right. Let's see who is next.
Mr. Carter. This is Vinny Balmerino, aka VH1's John Travolta, so, Mr. Carter, where's King Arthur? The best video game that was made based on a movie. PlayStation 2 is probably Return of the King. Oh.
Okay. That's actually a real answer. Thank you, John Travolta. Maybe next time you could show off your elite gaming skills. Um, the Lord of the Rings games, those EA games that they came out with, they're actually really good. There was a series of those. There was, weirdly, the Fellowship of the Ring was done by some different company, but Return of the King, I'm sorry, the Two Towers and Return of the King were both done by EA, and they were both very good games. Hack and slash style, action adventure, RPGs to some extent. And then they wound up doing the Third Age RPG, which was actually a really good game. They came out on all the consoles. It was good stuff. I do like the Return of the King. That's a very good choice. All right, let's see who's next.
Well, hi, Joshua Turbo. This is your buddy. You met me at the postnasal trip. You met me out in the public, and this is Silly McTitty Bag. I would guess for your question, what is the best fit? Jeez, I haven't thought of this one in ages. But probably the best video game based on a movie is Marble Madness.
Oh my god. Okay. Holy shit. All right, let's see if we can let's see if we can find another caller here.
All right, we're talking movie-based video games that borrow IP. Which are the best out there? I gotta tell you, the more I think about it, Batman for NES really does rise to the top. I want to say Ninja Turtles, but I don't think I've actually played a Ninja Turtles game that was based on the movie. See, it doesn't count when that's the case. And same with stuff like DuckTales, not based on a movie. TV shows, cartoons, absolutely. I guess maybe a guilty pleasure favorite of mine would be Jurassic Park, but what version is what you're asking? NES, Super NES? No. Genesis.
Ooh.
Jurassic Park game for the Genesis was awesome. Not Rampage Edition, just the regular standard original release. It's probably my favorite, and I'm sure I'm missing a ton of other notable games that were based on movies, but this was the best by far, absolutely. Honorable mention again, based on a cartoon TV show, not a movie, but Batman Vengeance for the GameCube. Cheers.
There you go. Yeah, I love that he mentioned that. By the way, that's Rob McCallum. He's a director. He directed a film called The Nintendo Quest, and I believe he's got a few other ones out there too. So check those out if you happen to have Amazon Prime, or if you're streaming services, or you buy DVDs and Blu-rays. He's got some out there. Just look up Nintendo Quest. Thank you so much, Rob, for contributing this week. I really do appreciate it. Jurassic Park on the Genesis. I actually don't think I've spent more than like 5 or 10 minutes playing that. Weirdly, I played a ton of the Super Nintendo edition, or even the NES one to some extent. But the Super Nintendo one had a recently done an update to it. There's a ROM out there, which I don't know how big you are on downloading ROMs and mods and picking up games, but someone added a save feature to Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo, which is a game that absolutely needs a save feature. I think on average it's like a 3.5, 4 hour game, which obviously people can sit down and play a 3 or 4 hour game, but not in one sitting. I mean, it's kind of nice to be able to save it somewhere. But it has a nice transition from like top-down action RPG style graphics to like first-person shooter stuff. And the first-person shooter stuff is very subtle and almost survival horror-like. I always enjoyed Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo. I still have yet to try the newer version that has some saves on it though. But I did find it really fascinating too that like the overworld, the game itself has a really difficult time saving because I've read up, and this is a very long explanation on how I got to Jurassic Park. But the Genesis version, I need to try it. I need to play it more than I ever have. That's super cool that he recommended it. And Batman on the NES is fucking brilliant. Love that game. But like Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo, the overworld, there's a certain amount of dinosaurs and velociraptors and T-Rexes, whatever. But apparently the one main reason why the development team never added a save feature to it is because it tracks every single dinosaur on the map from the time it loads its initial gameplay. So from the time you're playing it until the time you beat the game, it constantly keeps following those dinosaurs around. So if you were to actually be on the overworld and kill every single dinosaur that's on the overworld, you'd never see them again. Meaning if you kill every dinosaur out there, you basically don't have to worry about anything to fight on the overworld forever. You can go into the areas and do all the cleaning out of the areas and stuff and the same thing, but once you come back out, all the dinosaurs are gone. That's why sometimes you'll randomly just encounter a velociraptor in a really random spot because it probably traveled from all the way to the other side of the map to your character. It's crazy. And it just keeps track of all that stuff. So when the game saves and stuff, it has a very difficult time with that because it has to like make, Velociraptor number 743 was here at point B, and here's a fucking other dinosaur over here, and here's a Triceratops, and here's a T-Rex, and here's whatever. And if you're saving it, you can't. Like it doesn't have enough memory to save all that information. So sounds crazy because it is. Not a great idea on the development team. But anyway, somebody found that out, was reading up on it, and actually added saves to it, which if you're using an emulator anyway, really doesn't help or hurt anything because you can just use save states. But still, I think it's really cool. But thank you so much, Rob, for talking for that call in. I always appreciate it when we can get some guest callers during the week. That's always a lot of fun to hear different perspectives and different ideas and stuff. But yeah, super cool. Thank you so much, dude.
Hello, is this Joshua Turbo? I got your message on my answering machine, but listen, I don't know why you want to scream about it on Thursday around like 9. I'm just saying, don't call me
Trace, are you okay?
Don't call me at 9 on Thursday, because I'm going right to bed after bingo at 6:30. Can you stop leaving message on my answering machine about games? Movie games, I don't even know what that means. I think my life is already one big version of grumpy old men. Less sciatica. I don't know. Stop calling me.
Well, thank you, Therese. Yeah. What's up, Ring Fit Runner? Hey, my friend. How are you? Thanks for hanging. Yeah, we're doing a quick little Sunday night chat just to kind of go over some of the call-ins from this week. You may have just heard that. I think it was Therese. Therese. I should stop leaving phone messages on her answering machine. I'll have to remember that one. All right, let's go to one more. Hopefully this is the most serious call-in we've got so far.
Yeah, this is the Godfather.
Oh, God.
Don Corleone. You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding. Ask me this question. So I have an answer for you. What is the best video game based on the movie franchise? I gotta tell you this. In Sicily, the best one is True Lies on the Super Nintendo.
That's actually not a
You
bad
got
answer.
Janine from the Ghostbusters. You got Daryl Hannah. If you don't agree with me, I'll break your fucking head.
I believe that was The Godfather. Thank you so much. Wait, hold on. Whoa. I think I missed one. Get to this last one.
Good evening, my Glaminites. This is indie wrestling darling Xavier Michaels. I gotta put my 3 cents in, because yes, my cents matter more than yours, about what the greatest video game based on a movie or movie franchise that melded into a video game is. And in my opinion, even though they're harder than balls, the Super Star Wars from NES.
That's a great option.
It followed the storyline of the movies. They were fun, they're replayable, and they hold a special place in the heart because, well, I'm the glam god, and I say so. Love y'all. Peace out.
Love y'all and peace out. That's right. I was actually going to mention the Super Star Wars games because they are fantastic. There's obviously some quirks and some issues with the games, but overall, they're actually really fun. And yeah, the Super Star Wars games on the Super Nintendo is actually what got me into Star Wars because they were so well done. The music was orchestrated. It sounded really cool. JVC did a great job working with LucasArts Games on bringing those to like an action adventure style game. Now, sure, the controls weren't the best, and sometimes the game would be a little unfair. But like overall, very challenging games. Great, fun, cool storylines, awesome music, awesome graphics. I would definitely say. And who's Teresa? Who's Teresa? I would definitely say they were a lot of fun though. So cool beans, man. All right, so let's do something here. Let me see what I got here. I actually didn't even test these out. JVC and Lucas frolicking. Believe in music. Da, 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 da. Oh, perfect. Then love. Okay, good. I did some moving around this week. I increased my hard drive space, and I actually did not check to make sure this worked or not. All right. Thank you guys so much, by the way, for hanging out and chatting about the question of the week. Love you guys super much, and we'll talk next week for question 8 for the weekly question of the day. I'll talk to you guys later.